This is the mindness at the mystery font. Goodness gray. Us. Well, this is Tim at the mystery font. I'm assembling executive function, and it's clarifying. This is Minneapolis. This is the human stain, the human strain, the human line main of imagination coming from brain to brain, from every sentient frame, imagination, aim, mind this container. For play, that we might not be prey. For play. What is the language that your brain knew before you started hearing words outside of the womb? Good gray. How do we know what is real around us? We have scient minds. We have what I believe Michael Shermer called patternicity, the ability to assemble a substrate through trial and error, essentially being our own empirical engines and analysis matrices to make a story of reality that we can depend on, to understand what's happening around us and assemble beliefs. And the mind of democracy is a collective project. The mind of democracy is in motion. Just like liberty is walking, the mind of democracy is in motion. And our assembled, liaised, all of us, if there is a connection point to potentially all knowledge and experience, then we are also evidence, we are record, and we're testimony. In the falsehood, there is a synaptic occurrence. There is liaison that gives some peek into a substrate of connection through morphic resonance, where the trauma of what we're going through somehow taps a root or something. We are, if only because there is a flourish of activity in the ways that we are not consciously aware of, that our minds are part of field. The vivient surge of that in the midst of potential upheaval and collapse of habitat is so intense that the rest of our sentience finds a way to notice it, or what's happening in the super subconscious or in the space of our commingled knowledge and all of us experiencing it in part through morphic resonance. that we might, if only have a greater sense of it, or more, that we might have a sense, a better sense, of how the lies trace back to one or two or three, 4 or 5 lies maybe. Eventually there are very few lies that spring from fewer devices. And the massive structure of white supremacist patriarchal terror built on lies comes down to not that many massive, massive, massive lies upon which other things simply fall like dominoes until we interrupt and interrogate the sequence to find where that domino tips at the beginning and how it was laid out. That being awoken in a field of dominoes falling doesn't mean this is where we were supposed to be born or awoken. Seeing the systems around us and seeing how we have been over 5 decades robbed of a lot of agency. Seeing how the diseases that some of the worst elements in society now are trying to erase or hide behind laws that prevent children from talking about problems, prevent children from talking about being emotional beings and having empathy, prevent children from talking about difficult issues and developing critical thinking skills and critical language and expression skills to skillfully talk about things so that it doesn't make so much sense for someone to say, oh, I didn't tell anybody about an oncoming threat because I didn't want to cause a panic. Like as if the normalized inability to communicate about something if there's the least bit of difficulty is just normal and move on, as opposed to millions of people didn't have to be uprooted and upended and terrorized, and certainly over 1 million in America didn't have to die. Millions more didn't have to deal with long COVID or have been in some way compromised or weakened that we didn't need. What if it were just a total hoax? What if COVID had been a hoax? I don't believe that that's the case. If something is making people sick, there's something real there. I do think that whatever the case, a leader worth their salt calls people to a common task and a common goal and the common trust, especially in a moment when things are scary. That's when you make it easier to trust. That's when you invest in trust. That's when you vaunt it and put your trust in with your skin in the game. That's when fireside chats with a radio happen and a nation listens. That's what was glaringly missing in every way from the fiasco that was the Trump presidency, the one and only Trump presidency. The liaised minds of democracy could see, or at least have a sense, that the diseases that Ron DeSantis is telling us we shouldn't talk about are actually deadly serious things to even consider passing on to anyone without telling people what we're passing on, without telling our children or our neighbors what we carry and what we're passing on, or what challenges, what gifts, and what marks of knowledge and knowing and similarity. What if your child looks a lot like you and you hurt someone in the community? And what if the person you hurt has a child that looks a lot like them? Isn't there a shape that needs repair? If there's not truth and reconciliation, isn't there also then still something to share? We don't need to be so base and savage as to call people savages. We don't need to be so base and ruthless as to simply say, oh, don't go over there, they don't like us over there, they're different, and have that be all you say about generational trauma and harm. If minds liaise and people can see into spaces, into facts and truths that are obscured from us because we hide from things that we would fear displace us, but in fact show us all that we are on the same page of not knowing what page we're on. And there's literally one human race. There's one spectrum. We are a kindness come. And if the minds of democracy could hear all of us at once and hear us all thinking when someone says something abominable that quotes Adolf Hitler, like calling immigrants people who are spoiling blood, or things abominable of that nature that are simply more than dog whistles, they're simply calls to apocalypse under racist totalitarianism, that we would hear in us, oh, actually, there's a lot of fear around that and a lot of meaning, but actually we can sort it to lies. We can sort the origins of that shit to lies. Whiteness was created. It is built on lies. Entirely built on lies. And to some extent, it seems like built on fear of inferiority. That people like my ancestors stole technology and stole people and erased their meaning so much that we still don't recognize that folks were losing their minds about being asked to put on a mask to protect mom and dad in our community. And that was so bad, and that those are the identical people who say things like that slavery wasn't so bad. And use words like slavery to talk about things like being asked to comply with like a health order for the general welfare. Not that those things shouldn't be interrogated, and that things like vaccines might be worth looking into if you have concerns about something like that. But also being aware of how we have an impact on one another in a way that's holistic and reciprocal. And being willing to hear, like actually handle the truth, not just I can tell you I'm yelling at you and I can scream and say I can handle the truth. You don't know how hard I am. Are you hard enough that you have willingness to do the deft, sacred, often difficult work of handling the truth? Are you willing to do so? And are you honorable enough to only do so? We've let our leaders be infiltrated, not only by Nazis of MAGA, also by people in the Democratic Party and elsewhere, we have people who are not really terribly focused. Once we defeat this surge of attempt of Project 2025, we have work to do. That's more than just every 4 years. We have a mission to address our American apocalypse, our American apartheid that we've been camped on for a while. And the abomination of it can't any longer be held in cognitive dissonance and have us survive. We have to realize that we are strong enough to help our children in age and stage appropriate ways, which also means ourselves in age and stage appropriate ways. Reckon with what our ancestors and what we have done or gone through, or both. And it is literally only possible in the present moment. We can't do it tomorrow. We can only do it right now. The only time we can actually act is exactly in this moment. We can only administer love now.
Falsehood will tell you facts aren't factual
falsehood will tell you intuition's faulty. The falsehood will tell you facts aren't factual actually. The falsehood will tell you intuition's faulty. The falsehood will tell you facts aren't factual actually. The falsehood will tell you intuition's faulty. The falsehood will tell you facts aren't factual actually. The falsehood will tell you intuition's faulty. The falsehood will tell you facts aren't factual. Who is the falsehood? We may never know. The falsehood is only one of the stories we're following here at the Mystery Font. Good evening. Well, where I am, I suppose morning. Good morning. Good morning, this is the Mystery Font. Mystery Font. Mystery Font. Mystery Font. Oh, I have reason to believe I'm going to dial in here because I want to trust but verify. Good golly, gee willikers, this is, I think what we have here, golly, it's the kind prehension, and I want to be clear. The executive function has landed so dear that I am very clear. I can see myself as if I'm standing behind me saying, I love you, you belong to be there. You belong to be where? You belong, like, you know, it's almost like your mother is standing there. It's almost like you are standing there saying, let's go. Let's do this. Let's light the lamp and let people know there's a song to sing. Let's let people know that there's a reason to sing a song of joy. Who is the falsehood? If we are looking for joy, we will find falsehood because the falsehood stands out when our eyes are open to love. It can also be easier to miss then. I suppose it's about how grounded that love might be. How do we perceive the falsehood? Even if we know basically the substrate, sometimes our view is getting torn up or refocused without our having asked exactly. How do we tune and find things that might be a benefit like meditation, but might be differently accessible? I think it's about having different ways to find a meditative space or a space of calm or release or of flow or of so many other things. But what opens up if we don't ask for it to open? And so radio science brain exists, and it will continue to grow. This is the kind prehension and Scoop Troop, as we pull a few things off the readout here, remember Darvo, our relic of looking at the falsehood just now. It's handy to have that Darvo card at the ready, Scoop Troop, because, well, when we're confronting lies in ourselves or in others, for certain, confronting the lies of dark triad predators, or of the almost entirely inescapably pernicious falsehood themselves. If you feel you are in the midst of someone who is a disciple of the falsehood, or if you happen upon the falsehood themselves or recording, be aware. Denial, attack, and reversal of the victim and offender, Darvo, will be employed against accountability, will be employed against fact, will be employed against legitimate credibility. Darvo, keep it handy, Scoop Troop. Good gracious. Radio science brain. This is something that I've worked with before, and I've shared it, but I've only sung with this once. This is a new track of Radio Science Brain, and it's a shorter backing track. At any rate, this is what happens when I do it right now. Radio Science Brain. space through which we could betray. I'll hate my fate away. We are a kindness come, we are the mindless among, we are the sensuous spun. We are the radiation of love's imagination. You are the mindless made we contain an ache to play. We are the kindness I would ask to obey. We are the way. If we follow love, we will find it today. Perpendicular trains, parallel against hate, parallel against hate. Life behaves. Renovation. It's all like each of us holds part of the sun. We are Solaria. Solaria, is that the plural of the solar fractal through all? Imagine this You are the brain awake. You are the brain awake. You are the adulator. Renovation of love's imagination. Radio science, brain, innate relay. I'd ache this way if I had any say. That is what it is. I may change the end there where there's, I don't know. I may take out the other words there at the end, just because it sort of alters. It kind of bends me to have to deal with that information as opposed to the other tracks I've made before where it's just, I've layered things before, but this is, I think I want the backing track to be free of other legible words. Perhaps, at any rate. That was a version of Radio Science Brain. Let's just cleanse the palate for something kind of different, like maybe with this is the theme for The Falsehood. And this year there will be a live performance production of this piece. We are the reality distortion. Reality distortion. false identity. We are the reality distortion. We are the reality distortion. Feeling is real and the real is real. We are the reality distortion. We are the reality distortion. So we'll tell you intuition's faulty. Falsehood will tell you facts are factual actually. We are the reality distortion. We are the reality Falsehood will groom you not to question, just believe. Falsehood can rob you of the choice you would see. We are the reality distortion. Falsehood will tell you it's the one and only. Falsehood may tell you it's the one and only. We are the reality distortion field. We are the reality distortion field. Falsehood will sow doubt intuition knows things. We are the reality distortion field. I think it is important to do as early as possible in the next few months a showing of the Falsehood Live performance. Would be an hour, essentially. Maybe as brief as 42 minutes. But within an hour, it can be what it needs to be, I believe. And it will be a I've been building it as a solo piece, but with the intent of it being multiple performers, 5 to 7 people ultimately. But I will begin, having done a workshop this summer that definitely bumped into not any of them, but some significant things that it was really good to work out. Making a piece that largely happens in the dark, it's good to sort out a lot of things, to know how to do things in the dark, to know what the eccentricities and potencies of the glow spectrum that I'm working with is all about. And that is the falsehood coming this year. For something rather different. I'm going to turn off the microphone to cough. Far, far better. We are here within the mystery font. Why, I'm right here after all, just looking at whatever this all is happening with and about and on top of. Good gracious. I think we have an opportunity oh yes, that's what I was knitting together executive function to do. It is important to have the record correct. And if you do feel like the falsehood or the mystery font 42 Ope Intuit, which I'm assembling and beginning to show guest episodes of soon, as well as recording new guest episodes, so that this one-person show will expand to have, hopefully, an ever-expanding neighborhood. If you would like to help this work expand such that I can compose what is needed for the falsehood this year, such that other projects for the good of community and fostering dialogue, and to do what I can do to prevent Project 2025 from going through, to disable and disintegrate and send to healthcare and accountability Agenda 47. We have one chance to send fascism away, and it's this chance. And there will be others, but maybe not so easy if we don't take this one. We really have to say no, I think, if we want to be able to do that, if we want to have the ability to say no, we have to do it. We're dealing with, I believe, a dark triad predator. And, oh, incidentally, Donald Trump remains at large. Donald Trump remains at large. Is that what that card is? Ah, yes, the falsehood was... That's funny. The falsehood is so often you know, scooped Trump and so many others of us. But so often it makes me, again, I have to think that any of the times that the falsehood has, oh, I've dropped the gloves, any of the times that the falsehood has slinked in, and after the fact we find, you know, for a moment or an entire speech even sometimes, surreptitiously implanted themselves. That ability to move in time, or to, as if sort of kind of a violent, silent, invisible mist of containment and erasure and phantasmagoria, that this falsehood can simply evaporate someone to someplace and then replace them back once the falsehood has populated space with hokum. It's truly amazing the amount of times that the falsehood has struck in recent years. I think the rumors are true that we don't just have sort of the endless copycats that we've had through the centuries, but we indeed, I think the planet now, have we had a truly confirmed sighting of the falsehood? I think the last big one that we agree on would be Adolf Hitler. I mean, there are other, but in terms of one where we understand this person donned a massive, massive lie. It seems pretty clear that they were aware of that. And again, through cult of personality and aggrievement and terrorism, had horribly potent, terroristic, harmful effect. And there have been others through the ages, but the falsehood donned so completely, and at times literally. To don the falsehood without any sense of humanity, with no limit to what one will do, what one will say, what one will lie about or attack or seek to degrade proactively. That it is the stuff that's most important to us, that the massive distortions in the field of reality are sent to attack. Those distortion areas are so often our generational trauma, and that being stimulated by the same shapes now, or targetings to re-traumatize, to keep us in panic, in a low-level panic. But you don't need to be triggered to have severely compromised executive function. And you don't need to be triggered in terms of lacking parts of the array of consciousness, like calm imagination. I think we've been stolen from ourselves. And it would be really good for any of us who don't know to let ourselves be listened to by ourselves, to be, at least for 10 minutes. I'd set a timer for like 12 minutes in a quiet place where you can be alone and listen to your own mind, even if it's just anything, even if it's just say to yourself out loud, or silently in your mind, say something like, "What do you have to share with me? I'm here for the readout." Or, "Is there anything that I'm not hearing that I need to hear from me? What am I aching to say to the world that I haven't listened to for myself? Is this voice in me that I'm seeking to drown at times, or feels difficult to care about or love or want to foster? If there's self-loathing or pain or grief, how do we know that we're safe? Not just safe, but find safety in an empty room or a quiet space alone. It doesn't have to be alone, but let's just say, for the sake of whatever calibrates, it helps you calibrate and know that you're able to just think and not feel judged by anyone or anything, but just able to be at peace and not distracted by anything, able to be as deeply presently mindful and present as possible, lucid to this moment, and calmly, because it's powerful. There's a powerful effect that comes from treating yourself with your own mind like you would treat another person, in terms of being able to say you are worth listening to. That if you were isolated for years, it might be healthy for you to drop a script, to say, I'm going to actually sit down and have like a meeting where I play the other side of something. I'm going to say I want to share what I've been thinking about. And I've been kind of working with these ideas. I'm just going to spit it out in 10 minutes. It could take an hour, but I'm just going to give you the 10-minute version. And then also take that in and try to, whether playing it back or reading it out loud or something, hear it and try to hear it for what it is, as if it's someone else writing it, or as if you've handed it to someone, and by simply handing it to this person you respect, or would feel embarrassed if you'd let the project down or something, you immediately see the things, oh God, I would want to add this. Go through that. The idea being, essentially, your mind is special, it is good, and if there are issues or problems or concerns, your mind can help, and can even help your mind. And knowing how to ask for help if you need help with that is part of where your mind can help too. Even if it's scary, it's all right, and better to be able to ask and trust but verify than not to be able to trust and verify. If you trust so little that you won't verify, that sounds like abandonment of self, and the idea being it's good to listen to self, not only because of safety issues of am I taking care of myself, am I cognitively sound, but just all together. If you don't treat yourself like a member of your own kind, or like you deserve a reset in thinking of how you're listened to even by yourself. Because in the same way that other people around us hear our interest areas or things we're passionate about or ideas we have, and it's like, okay, I've heard that. Yep, no, I get it. Yep, Do we not do that to ourselves and internalize that? Do we not do that to ourselves and internalize that sense of like, write a book, or like, come on, is this going anywhere? Like, do we need to shut down the gesture of thought in ourselves? Do we need to shut down the gesture of thought? We are the reality distortion fielding. And top story, Donald Trump remains at large. And I am having an episode. This very clearly is simply, in part, an episode of Mystery Font 42, Ope Intuit. I do love you. Thank you for attention to these matters, to this space, to your mind as I'm calling up things that would at least bring some attention to oneself, to mind, to mindfulness, to thought, to improvisation that, again, touches in some way who we are. And especially in a time when things are nutty, let's say, when there are massive distortions in the field of reality being just really, they're festering and being made to do so. When we still have people without evidence holding the weapon of the 2020 election fraud, holding that weapon and coming back saying there wasn't an insurrection, they didn't do anything wrong. We have Project 2025 coming our way, and I think we need to say no to them now. It's not a thing about let's get ready. It's a thing about we need to have ourselves underway. It needs to be really clear, I think, declarative that that's not something America is going to have truck with. What? Goodness gracious. Ah, that feels better. Oh, wow, it feels like, oof. Is this lemon orange scrub? What's happening here? Oh, how can I feel this? That's so odd. It does look like it should taste like nerds in here or something. Doesn't quite, but almost kind of does, but not quite. Maybe it's time to take a pause. I think it's time to pause, and I may go into a quiet space myself and meditate. really it was hearing the advice of a brilliant person saying that just 10 minutes a day of meditation would do substantial positive restructuring in the brain that would look a lot like someone who had been meditating for longer than just, say, a few weeks or 6 weeks. And I realized if I set a timer, that would take some of my "am I doing it right" out of the way, and I could maybe just relax. And meditation has saved my life and improved it. And it only opens further. And you deserve connection with your intuition and your deepest, highest self. So say we all. All of us here at the Mystery Font. I love you, and I'm in love with you, as in we're building a world together with love. And so I'm in it. I'm into it. And I hope you're into it too. This is the Mystery Font. And yes, we can. We can foster with pragmatic steps a better world, not utopia, but a better world, by removing our capitalization upon need and vulnerability and capitalizing upon want, because that won't go away. And the only reason not to make the move is an addiction to punishment. And